We are Michael Wood, a Ph.D. in police management and former sergeant with the Baltimore Police Department, and Ty Tate, a regular person like most of you, trying to make sense of the world we all live in. A world where what you don't know can hurt you. This is Wood and T on the POV.
Next up, why is it that police in the U.S. seem to be more violent, seem to kill more people than we hear about in other countries? What's different about us?
Well, so why do the U.S. police seem to kill more people than other countries? Well, because they do. But let's start with the good news in this. The trend has continually gone down. We didn't have the numbers before, but we do have numbers now. So we have numbers for, I think, about 5 to 6 years of tracking how many police killings they were. A newspaper had to do this. For those that don't know, police killings are justified killings. Justified killings are not reported to the FBI, so they do not show up on the murder stats and homicide stats that you see. So that's why newspaper, The Guardian, had to start tracking by collating stories, and they've started to be the ones that actually track the list. It's still not something that they have to report to the FBI. So thanks to The Guardian for that. Journalism actually paid off in one way, shape, or form. But the trend has been going down, and that's a double good because the population's been going up. When they first started taking numbers, we were at about 1,300 police killings per year. And from what I can tell, that number's been relatively stable just by making inferences. But the more recent evidence has been this number getting down to less than 1,000 now over the short time that they've tracked it. So in the last 10 years, you can say at least police killings have gone down by at least 400 killings per year. That's radically significant. Especially since the population has been growing. So even if the numbers were stagnant, that would be good. And the numbers are actually going down while the population is going up. So per capita, we're getting close to police killings having been dropped in half over the last 10 years. So there is a lot of progress going in that. And I think a lot of that progress is actually psychological. It's in police being more aware of it than it is actually something tangible in policy. Policies have not changed. This is a lot to do with just the American culture for some reason. The stats most recently actually showed that a white cop is less likely to shoot a black suspect than a black cop is. I think there's a lot of reasons for that make obvious sense. I think that's white cop is more likely to shoot a white person and a black cop's more likely to shoot a black person. Basically, you can sum this up by all crime is interfamiliar. All violent stats that we have, no matter what they are more likely to be perpetrated on somebody who's more like you than somebody who isn't like you. And there's absolutely, yeah, I mean, like everything is that way when it comes to the general idea of violence. It's who you're around, things like that. So, right, opportunity. So there's no reason to believe that cops are the exception to that in all reality. I think it's a personal slight. I think that from my experience with black cops are more aggressive because they see that black suspect being a reflection upon them and their people, whereas I didn't have that feeling. And I feel like I was probably a little more aggressive towards white people and like thinking in my head, like, you're one of us. What's wrong with you? Why are you making us look bad? You know, like I feel like I can't be the only person thinking that, you know? So right. I mean, it seems almost obvious. I feel like we would all kind of do that. Like, even if you're out in the mall and you're talking about, you know, a kid that looks like your kid versus a kid that looks like another kid, you know, you see a kid that looks like your kid acting up, you're probably gonna be like, you act like that, oh, I'm gonna jack you up. But if it's like some kid that has no correlation, you got both probably just staring there like, what the heck is wrong with those people? So I just think there's something there. Why though? I think it's because of the Second Amendment. I really do. Combine that with some bad training, of course, but cops in America are more on edge than they would be anywhere else, or at least they have reason to be more on edge than in anywhere else in the world for the most part. This is the place where you're most likely going to find somebody with a handgun in the car. You're most likely going to be shot at by someone. You're most likely going to be in a dangerous situation. Ultimately, part of the price of freedom and liberty is, and when you combine it with a police force that responds to violence, and you have Americans being we kind of have a violent culture compared to other developed countries. So it seems to me that maybe it's avoidable, but liberty and violence go hand in hand. You're going to sacrifice safety for liberties. And I think what truly makes us unique is that we have decided to be free enough that people can defend themselves against the state, which means that the state has something to worry about from the people. And that's going to create a dynamic that is going to have more killings than anyone else. I think even if we do our best, I still think we're going to be among the world's worst. It's just going to be a cost of freedom. And I've discussed this many times before. Like I say, we don't know where the floor is, and that's part of my problem when it comes to police killings. Is when we have this idea of liberty, and Philando Castile can carry a gun just as much as I can, and when you have that situation going on where everybody's under this equal paradigm of liberty, where is the floor of violence? I mean, I know in Singapore, they're authoritarian and totalitarian. They can totally crush crime in their area because all the crime that the state's committed, they don't consider to be crime. All the civil violations that the police are doing there, nobody considers that crime. So we always have to be careful about what crime is anyway. It's a measurement of police activity, not of citizen activity. So where is that floor? What if the floor, the best we can do is 400 killings per year when people go around with guns, that you're just going to be in those situations? That might be the floor. So we all should be criticizing where we are, and we're obviously not at the floor, but we should also accept that ultimate success of police killings probably isn't zero, even though that needs to be our perspective at all times. It's very tied back in with the snowflake theory of police for sure. But I think that, again, that's also just humans. Most people don't know how they're going to react under a situation. And I think a lot of people would shoot somebody in a situation where the person didn't really do anything to be shot just because of the tension of the moment. And I don't think cops are an exception to that. They may get worse. I think that bad training has a big issue with that. I often talk about the Kurt Dinkheller shooting. And he's a cop that was in a northern, or I might not be northern. It was just an isolated area. He pulled over a pickup truck. The guy in the pickup truck gets out and starts shooting at him and kills him. And the deputy never returns a shot because he's just afraid. And you can see that it's like he doesn't even want to use his weapon against another human being. And you watch him just sit there and be executed. It's all on film. And almost every cop has seen this story, has seen this video numerous times. So they're programmed too that danger's right behind every corner. Now, where danger is behind every corner more so than a lot of the world, it's still not nearly behind every corner. I mean, a car stop cops always say there's no such thing as a routine car stop. It's like, if you look at the numbers, there's a lot of such thing as a routine car stop. The idea is very small that a suspect will kill you or seriously injure you as a cop, but the fear of it dominates. And I think part of that is true on the street now. I really wish people would see the other sides or the just other human beings as more closely to themselves. It's the same thing with the data behind the Black Lives Matter movement. The data is that it's really not that big of a deal. And it seems hard to say, but 9 unarmed black people being killed last year in this society, I mean, maybe we can get that to 4, but to think you're going to eliminate that is crazy. I mean, 19 white people unarmed were killed last year. It was more than twice as many. So that's actually disparate, because if police respond to violence, that's definitely a disparate thing. They're more likely to shoot a white person than they are to shoot a black person. but the fear of it grips everybody. The fear of it's going to grip a black person when he sees 9, and the fear is going to grip a white person when he sees 19. You know, like the media narrative is separating us.
I think one of the things, though, that people would disagree on is that Black people make up a smaller percentage of the population. It might be 50% of the people shot, but we aren't 50% of the population as a whole.
Right, and that's the thing is police do not respond to demographics. That mere theory that police respond to demographics would say that approximately 15% of police arrests should be senior citizens and another 10% should be children. Police respond to violence. Whether that is right or wrong is not the argument that I'm making. The argument that I would make is that the current situation is that police respond to violence and black males commit a lot more violence than every other group. White males commit the second most violence of any other group, and it's natural that they're going to be second on that list, proportionality wise. But the idea that black people commit more violence is not an indictment on black people. It's an indictment on their victimization of environmental poisoning. And that's hard for, I think, hard for people to see, or hard to separate that when I say black people commit more violence because of these situations. It's hard to hear the because of these situations. It has nothing to do with you as an individual. It's really also that black males are poisoned more. Black males are fatherless homes.
That I think a lot of people just aren't quite getting. Because you live in a poor area, you're much more likely to be poisoned. Because you are poisoned, you're much more likely to be violent. And that's the situation a lot of people.
And then when you're violent, you're much more likely to end up in a poor area. You know, it's a vicious cycle.
Yeah. And that's, I think, the real thing that people just are not getting. That's one of the things I really like about how you try to educate people, that there are a lot of pieces that a lot of folks just don't want to acknowledge. They want to see black people this and cops that, regardless of how they feel about those two subjects, but they don't look at the other pieces. You know, you might hate the cops and you might love black people, or you might hate black people and love the cops, but it's not nearly as simple as those extremes. It just isn't.
Yeah, and I really fear that when we get wrapped up in things or emotional in the things, we end up with those really bad policies that we were talking about. And this is why some people might have had problems with me lately, because I am very, very much against Joe Biden and bringing back the Obama administration. I mean, I was there as Black Lives Matter started. Under the Obama administration, I was there in Standing Rock doing the protests as Obama did not care what happened to us and said everybody can let it play out and see what happens. He did no real police reform, did nothing for the drug reform. The crime bill, the crime bill that Biden helped create, again.
It's just going to he helped.
Yeah, good intentions. These are the things where I think there were good intentions. I really do. But when we have emotions driving policies, we end up in really, really bad policy. And I don't want to see that now, you know.